Om Swastiastu Om Awikanamastu Namo Siddham.
Every 210 days, thousands of people from villages all over South Bali converge on the tiny island of Serangan to attend the 3-day temple rites held at Pura Sakenan. Golden carriages containing images of visiting deities from temples on the mainland are being carried across the tidal flats. The Balinese display a strong sense of community cooperation and collective responsibility in their adherence to ancestral traditions. In no sphere of life is this more apparent than in the regularity of their attendance at rites held in the numerous temples with which each person has affiliations. The protective barong, referred to in historical mythology as Sang Kalagade, manifests the animalistic qualities of the forces against which it is pitted in dance drama. The more human, witch-like Rangda, referred to by the Balinese as Ratu Ayu, manifests the power of demonic forces over which she has supreme control. Legend has it that 3 high Hindu gods descended to earth to mediate with Durga, represented by the Rangda, who was decimating the population through the diseases she was creating. In order to urge Durga to return to her benign form, the gods contrived a dance. White masks represent the watery elements of the human body. In dance, the watery elements unite with the fiery elements represented by the red mask to restore a life-preserving balance. Temple priests, distinguishable by their white robes and headcloths, are able to interact intimately with powers aroused in ritual. All temple rites must include a sacrifice of a white duck to Varuna, the god of the sea. These gigantic male and female deity figures recall a giant black king known as Sri Aji Mayadanawa, who ruled Bali in legendary times. Mayadanawa was so enamored of the Chinese princess whom he took to wife that he neglected temples and prescribed rituals. When the gods refused to cure his wife of a deadly illness, he became even more remiss in the execution of his ritual responsibilities. Crops failed and disease raged. Bali became desolate. Temple festivals are social as well as religious events. Outside the temple enclosure, stalls sell drinks, toys and trinkets. Those who stay over the 3 days secure makeshift sleeping arrangements for themselves. In an offering in the form of dance, temple priests and priestesses pay homage to the deities of each direction, as well as to the great fanged king, the god of cholera, whose abode is on a nearby island. In the early hours of the morning, trance communication with deities occurs. Through techniques of contemplation and meditation, these priests prepare themselves to become vehicles for temple deities. Smoke from burning aromatic wood, incense and chanting entice deities to descend into the human realm in order to instruct the community on measures necessary for its continuing well-being. Sobbing, laughter and writhing are signs of the arrival of the possessing spirits. Priests mediate with the visiting spirit, pleading, urging and even arguing to secure benefits for the community. Deities themselves sometimes request new shrines or express dissatisfaction with offerings recently presented to them. The trance utterances of these priests will be heeded. Gods of the Hindu pantheon do not actively participate in trance rites. Those spirits which enter masks, priest mediums and shrines are local deities, as they are more involved in the mundane lives of ordinary people. Twin themes of horror and hilarity characteristic of community rites, combine dramatic and playful strategies for dealing with powers of uncertain dispositions. To conclude communications with the supernatural, the sacred giant puppets sing rhymes in dialogue and enact a comic flirtation. Community rites display a kind of mystical pragmatism. They are not directed to reward or to avoid punishment in the hereafter. Expectations are more immediate. The metaphysical is a fundamental fact of everyday life. The pictorial calendar, based on the coincidence of the 7- and 5-day weeks, depicts 35 periods or constellations with associated divine and demonic influences. Six such 35-day periods form the 210-day calendar. These conjunctions determine the appropriate timing of such events as cremations. The lotus throne in the northeast of every temple space symbolizes Surya Siwa, who sits in the center of a lotus surrounded by the deities of the 8 directions. Surya, the sun god, has become fused with the Hindu deity Siwa as a manifestation of all opposing forces in the realms of divinity, humanity, and nature. This godhead, who amongst other names is often referred to as Sangyang Widiwasur or Atintya, is the supreme manifestation of all other deities and has now assumed the greatest importance. Hindu deities also have terrifying powers of transformation in which they display their wrathful aspects. Batara Kala, the god of catastrophe, is regarded as the originator of disasters in the human world. Balinese religion is only broadly Hindu. Shaivite and Buddhist tantric cults merged and then fused with indigenous elements. The power which creates chaos can also reverse it. Dangerous, malevolent powers can be controlled by more fearsome ones. Such an example is the demure Uma, the wife of Siwa, who is also the awesome Durga, the goddess of death. Rangda Durga statues are commonly found in death temples. Cockfighting plays an important function in Balinese religion. The sacrifice of the blood of a cock outside a temple gate is an appeasement to demons who might interfere with the sacred rites inside the temple. The anthropologist Margaret Mead and her husband Gregory Bateson, who researched in Bali during the 1930s, were the first to observe the intimacy and deep psychological identification of Balinese men with their cocks. The pun exists in Balinese language as it does in English. At a fight, all men, princes and commoners, become equal. Like other peoples of Southeast Asia and Polynesia, the Balinese have a passion for cockfighting. It was a pastime in which huge sums of money could change hands. When gambling was declared illegal in 1981 by the nationalist government, secular cockfighting became a prohibited activity. The Balinese have no objective descriptions of space. Mountains, seashores, ravines, and unusual features of the landscape are different and extraordinary. Ordinary mortals do not choose to live close to places perceived as inhabited by supernatural forces. At such places of supposed power, temples are erected for the nearby communities to gain favor and avert possible disaster. The Galungan Kuningan religious holiday period, that continues over 10 days, occurs, like many other rites, every 210 days. It begins in the dangerous week of Dungulan, one of the 30 7-day weeks of the Balinese calendar. Plaited palm leaf ornamentations and decorated bamboo poles are made to be erected outside all house compounds.
Ratu betara tijang aturan Banten Galungan, Manggaledang betara.
More elaborate constructions adorn the gates of compounds in which a couple live who've been married during the previous 210-day period. The decorated poles are believed to alert the family deities to their correct abodes in the shrines of each house temple. During these religious days, the ancestral deities of all families are honored. On the night before Galungan, the royal family of Permachutan in Denpasar gather outside their clan temple to honor their revered ancestors. The warrior dance commemorates the fight to the death of members of this family in the 1906 Puputan against Dutch invading forces. Only one member, a young boy, survived. In a pact designed to bring an end to the chaos the Dutch were bringing into their world, the Balinese stabbed themselves and each other while throwing offerings, usually presented to demons, at the bewildered Dutch troops, beseeching them to hasten the disintegration. Galungan is a time of feasting. Pork is a favored delicacy. The slaughter and preparation of feast food takes place in the early hours before dawn. The preparation and display of food is conspicuous, but not its consumption. The Balinese prefer to eat alone and in silence. Throughout Galungan, priests are in attendance at their temples. The village streets are busy as women take offerings to temples with which their family group have associations. For those with uncremated relatives, it is essential to visit the graveyard and the temple of the dead. The spirits of the deceased should not be neglected. Temple priests understand and know how to intercede with the vast array of supernaturals perceived to have an unbounded influence on human welfare. Friends and relatives take offerings to those recently married for blessings on their well-being and fertility. Throughout Galungan, protective barong masks are paraded around village boundaries and from gate to gate to secure the safety of man's living space. Balinese religion is interwoven with everyday life and community concerns. Even children become involved with adult concerns. They parade their own barong to the great enjoyment of their equally youthful audience. The performance includes a dramatization of a morality folk tale about a greedy character called Chupak. Galungan is a time when all work ceases in offices and rice fields. The streets are busy with holiday makers in their new clothes, which they've refrained from wearing until this holiday occasion. Some Balinese use the holiday to indulge their passion for kite flying.
hanya mutin pun si jabang bayi menawi atmani pun anti-anti ing pinggiring samudera ring selaudani enak kuliah kenering raga walonan si jabang bayi dan pun tatas.
A mandala offering specifically denotes the day Kunungan, which ends this 10-day ritual period. Led by a village priest, the very young participate in an activity directed to their future health and good fortune. One of the most dramatic trance possession spectacles known to outsiders is Pangre Bongan, which is held in Denpasar every 210 days. Even by Balinese ceremonial standards, this drama is somewhat unique. Throughout the morning, golden images and ornaments of local and ancestral deities, Rangda masks and barong from neighboring communities arrive at the temple. Professional mask wearers are adept in trance mediumship. They are being led through a procedure of holy water ablution, mantra, chanting and smoking with incense, intended to induce the spirit of Rangda Durga to enter the masks. These measures also fortify the wearers of the masks to withstand the dangerous spiritual bombardment to which they are subjected during trance. A combination of factors seem to actually trigger the trance state: a barragement of the senses, the cumulative mounting of excitation and tension, the highly charged emotional and mystically loaded atmosphere, and the tone and rhythm of the gamelan. possessed are perceived to be entered by miscellaneous spirits of lowly status called Bhutakala. Occasionally, temple officials supervising the frenzied possession themselves go into trance. They recover in a short while, usually after holy water is sprinkled over them. Outside the inner court of the temple, cockfights have provided the necessary spilling of blood to dissuade other manifest powers from interfering with the successful completion of the religious task in hand. Priests and priestesses enact a sacred dance. Others, dressed in the black and white poleng cloth, stab themselves with the sacred kris. There are no known written references to this rite. Opinions on its origin and meaning vary. One states that it is a ritual circumambulation to reactivate the powers of the Rangda masks. Given the Balinese tendency to dramatize tragic events and transform them into mass exorcisms aimed to prevent their recurrence, the rite could also be a reenactment of some ancient tragedy, a natural or military disaster. The shields, clubs and spiked maces are symbolic weapons of destruction. In this final phase, offerings of appeasement are being scattered in order to avert other catastrophic events.
Jalan Malwancan. Betul
Balinese dance is not derived from Indian dance. It is also strikingly different from other forms of dance from Southeast Asia. It has been observed by various scholars who researched in Bali that a climax, or rounded ending, is not essential to the Balinese sense of completeness, either in theatrical performance, sacred dance, or social relationships. Sacred dances are acts of magic and forms of offering. Thus, they are enacted in ritual space, where dancers become vessels of descending deities. The dancers adopt the basic rigid and stiff posture and gait typical of all the ancient male warrior-orientated dances. In this trance exorcism, the dancers are grasping sticks to which puppets are tied. These are being vibrated, causing the girls' arms to tremble. Several forms of trance possession occur among the Balinese. In exorcisms, popularly known as sangyang, the entranced dancer becomes transformed into a spirit. The almost spasmodic attempts to dance and the irritability the entranced girls display is characteristic. It may be that the apparent celebration of the demonic conceals a nightmare while encapsulating a solution. The Balinese externalize their fears concerning tragic events, expressing them in grotesque forms, while contradicting them with the graceful aesthetics of their rituals. This film was shot in the 1930s by Gregory Bateson and Margaret Mead, whose interest in trance possession stemmed from their investigations of the cultural influences of schizophrenia. In a more densely habitated village, a sacred dance is performed by two young girls. It is claimed they've never been taught to dance. Three pairs of different coloured masks are used in this sacred performance, during which the two young girls danced without a break for 5 hours. Perhaps the young girl dancers are seen by the assembled temple community as the seductive and beautiful nymphs sent to earth by the Hindu gods to awaken Arjuna from his meditation on a mountainside. The demon king, Deities Watakawacha, had tricked the great god Siwa into giving him the boon of invincibility in battle against gods, demigods, and other demons. In desperation at the chaos being caused by the great demon king, the gods decided to test the magical and physical power of the mortal Arjuna by tempting him with the wiles and beauty of the angels. After the failure of the heavenly nymphs to rouse him from his meditation, the gods knew that with Arjuna they had the means to defeat the demon king, who was threatening both heaven and earth with his evil ways and demonic powers. Not surprisingly, the nymphs from heaven swooned at their first sight of the handsome warrior. In certain parts of Bali, one still finds forms of trance exorcism in which people transform into animals and even objects. In this trance, trembling begins in the hand, to which a pot lid and small bells are attached. Eventually, the man in trance's whole body shows signs of the presence of the spirit as he twists, knocks and bangs against whatever obstacles he encounters. These are spirit-raising seances in which unseen spirits responsible for diseases are being identified and exorcised. They are being invited to reveal their presence through the movements of the dancer, then ridiculed and dismissed. When transformed into the spirit of a monkey, the dancer engages in the kind of hyperactive behavior characteristic of a monkey. At the end of the dance, the spirit will be asked to go home. Local people confirmed that these dances were very old and magically dangerous. The song chanted during the Spirit of the Ghost trance invokes a spirit from Balinese medical mythology who haunts graveyards and rivers. This spirit is associated with diseases of early infancy. The figure painted on the man's back is similar to that used in early life rites as a changeling to distract evil spirits from an infant. The rigidity, abnormal posturing, squatting and stupor acted out in this dance has led Western observers to describe it as the most eerie of all. In these trances, eyes are in a fixed stare and lips are pursed. The dancers simulate fury, fainting, derangement and finally fall to the ground in a fit. For the Balinese, exorcism is a means of restoring balance, rather than of annihilating demons. High priests undergo rigorous training and practice meditation over many years before earning the right to officiate at cremations of the highborn and at important temple occasions. Every high priest, such as this one of Tantric Buddhist persuasion, performs a personal rite each morning.
As a high priest, I must every morning purify my physical body before I commence the worship which will connect my spiritual body with the supreme deity through symbolic gestures of my hands and the utterance of sacred syllables.
He holds a bajra, or thunderbolt. This sacred emblem is peculiar to Buddhist priests. It gives some indication of the influence Tantric Buddhism has had on Balinese religion. During his personal rituals, the high priest creates holy water for the use of those who require it.
The holy water that I make can be used as offerings to the deities, to appease demons, and for the benefit of mankind.
Throughout Bali, the last month of the lunar year is marked by a 4-day rite, directed primarily to potentially destructive Bhutakala, the personified forces associated with the elements fire, water, air, wind, and ether. Masks and other sacred implements held in temples are paraded to the sea for reactivation. Elaborate offerings, including ornamental structures fashioned from the skins, offal, and entrails of animals, are placed at village crossroads and boundaries, graveyards, temples, the seaside, and at entrances to individual house yards. The night of the new moon culminates with noisy, frenzied activity designed to scare away any demonic forces. This is followed by Nyepi, the day of absolute silence, during which all activity is suspended. Fire, light, noise, and movement are prohibited. For 24 hours, no one makes a sound. Nyepi may be interpreted as an elaborate subterfuge designed to trick harmful demons into thinking that their human hosts no longer exist. Alternatively, the absolute stillness contrives a contrast with the frenetic rites of the previous day and is intended to restore the balance conducive to human well-being. Ancient palm leaf texts advise that once every 100 years, according to the lunar calendar, a great exorcistic ritual should be held. Obviously, for a once-a-100-year ritual, the rite should be 100 times greater than that performed every year on the day before Nyepi at the crossroads of every village and town, and 10 times greater than that for the rite held every 10 years at Pura Besake. An unsuccessful attempt to hold the complex and demanding rite was made in 1963. During the preparations, Gunung Agung, the volcano on whose slopes the state temple of Besake is sited, began to smoke. Then, during the festival, it exploded, pouring molten lava over a great deal of East Bali. It brought devastation and death to many. Naturally, the people of Bali saw this disruption as a sign of divine displeasure. It was a remarkable and eerie coincidence. With some trepidation, after the previous debacle, it was decided, 16 years later, to again attempt to fulfill the prescriptions regarding an Ekadasa Rudra. During March 1979, an Ekadasa Rudra was successfully completed with the full participation of all the people of Bali and without any untoward happenings. A ritual of such magnitude required weeks of freely contributed labor by many willing helpers. The women worked in the temple kitchen, concentrating on the making of colored rice flour cakes and woven leaf images for the offerings to the gods and demons, both deities and interfering spirits being equally important at this time. The men concerned themselves with the tall, temporary shrines. Four days before the great exorcistic ritual was held, the gods of Besake departed for the sea. procession grew larger at each village. At the same time as the procession headed for the beach at Klotok, another group bearing offerings, including a live buffalo and goat, climbed the 3,000 meters to the top of Gunung Agung. There they threw the live animals into the smouldering crater. The purpose of these live sacrifices was to request of the supreme deity that the oceans, lakes, earth, mountains and heavens would be pure, and so bring prosperity and harmony to the world. The gods of Besake then returned to their abode in the temple. At the gates of the state temple, they were received by offerings, including a skinned buffalo laid out before the temple steps. A high priest performed a small welcoming ritual, and the gods, one by one, were carried across the buffalo and back into their temple. Animals sacrificed to appease the demons were first consecrated inside the temple of Besake, assuring them of a better reincarnation. Then they were brought down the main temple steps and paraded 3 times around the massive temple complex. Included among the animals were an eagle, a crocodile, 40 buffalo, a kitten, a turtle, and a horse. The consecrated animals were killed by a priest in trance, using a sacrificial knife. The carcasses were placed in their correct positions on the cosmological compass, according to kind and color, so that the great exorcism of the 20th century could begin. Ekadasa Rudra is a great expiatory sacrifice for the 11 Rudras. That is, the 11 terrifying aspects of Siwa, the destroyer. Worship is directed toward the powers of the 11 directions of space. The 4 cardinal points, half points, center, zenith, and nadia. Mass prayers were orchestrated by 23 high priests, who in unison exploited their accumulated powers. This was the climax of the great Ekadasa Rudra rite, intended to return harmony between the negative and positive forces within the world of nature and the human realm by releasing them of virulence. People from 3 neighboring villages, represented by the red, yellow and white of their standards and costumes, arrive from a temple site high on a hill above the sea, where they've passed the night. They carry shrines, in which reside their village deities. Members of the communities gather to symbolically reenact the trials undergone by founding deities during their deliberations to decide in which of the 3 villages to settle. Representatives from 2 of the villages, the red and the white, bearing the stretchers in which reside their local deities, stage a trance dramatization called Prang Dewa, a battle of the deities, commemorating and thus reconfirming the founding of their villages. Enshrined in a temple on the top of a hill, there is a mortuary statue of a legendary royal widow witch who was given permission by Durga, the goddess of death, to spread pestilence. In death, this queen was deified and identified with Durga. Historical myth, the widow witch Rangda came to symbolize the goddess of death herself. This dance drama arose at a time when a severe epidemic swept through the land, decimating the population. The drama being enacted here is based on the historical legend of horrific pestilence spread by the royal widow witch. As the legend goes, Durga consented to the request of Rangda, the widow queen, to spread plague throughout the land. Attempts by the king's ministers to subdue the magically powerful queen failed. Eventually, Mpu Brada, an adept in tantric meditation and a denizen of the cremation ground, here identified with the Barong, succeeded in diffusing the witch's power through exorcism. The mask's presence has aroused disease-threatening lesser demons who have entered the Chris bearers. Trance pandemonium indicates that all is safe and testifies to the success of the ritual. Sounds not only establish contact, they can also confuse and repel dangerous spirits. The Balinese display a strong preference for things being active and noisy. Temples thronged with people, crowded with offerings and busy with musical dance drama. Silence is something they fear. Deserted streets, empty temples and fields without people are associated with times of devastating epidemics. It used to be the duty of the ruling princes to mount the great rituals crucial to the harmonious relations between man, nature, and the supernatural. Royal patronage has lapsed, but the Balinese people still maintain their faith in elaborate community rituals as a means to balance the conflicting influences of the demons and the deities that inhabit their island.